What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest as we give you the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and today we are looking at reports about the Jets looking for the market to trade stud wide receiver, Davante Adams, right? And this is an interesting thing. We already know that Aaron Rodgers is not going to be back in green and white. We already know they've got the bromance. They are the duo from back in Green Bay. It was Aaron Rodgers who wanted to get Davante Adams, and the Jets did use a third-round pick to trade for Davante Adams last year. But now there are reports that now that it is obvious that Aaron Rodgers won't be here, Ian Rappaport, among others, are saying that the Jets are now taking calls on Davante Adams. But here's the issue. As we get to the beginning of a new league year, which is only in a week and a half on March 12th, the thing is the Jets don't have a ton of leverage here because most teams know that if the Jets can't find a trade partner, they're just going to wind up waiting and cutting Davante Adams, releasing Davante Adams, right? Because that would be a big financial boost for the Jets. I mean, Davante Adams' cap hit is over $38 million if he was on the roster for this year. If they were to just go ahead and release him, it can save the Jets up to $30 million that they can use elsewhere. We'll talk about that $30 million a little bit later on, right? It would make the Adams cap hit just over $8 million, and if they designate him as what they call a post-June 1st cut, they can then spread that cap hit across 2 years, right? So it really would behoove the Jets to go ahead and release him. And here's the thing, there are other teams in the NFL that know that. I think, to be quite honest, most teams would not be motivated to give up a third, fourth, fifth round draft pick for Davante Adams, and instead they would just kind of wait, let the Jets cut him, and then try to sign him on the open market. And think about it, the Jets gave up a third round pick for Davante Adams. You also saw over the weekend Washington traded for Deebo Samuel, and it only cost a fifth rounder, right? So what are we talking about for Davante Adams? I don't think any teams are going to really give him much. The only way that teams would really pony up and give the Jets, I don't think it's anything better than a fifth rounder that, Deebo commanded from the Commanders, right? The only way it would happen is if the Jets get on the phone and there are multiple teams out there that want Davante Adams, then maybe you can get something of a bidding war and try to get kind of early rights to Davante before the Jets would cut him, before he would become a free agent. That's the only scenario I think that would happen. And listen, maybe that is the case because Davante Adams is still an elite wide receiver in this league. He's coming off a season with 85 catches, over 1,000 yards, and 8 touchdowns. He had 300-yard games. He had 16 kind of contested catches. He had explosive catches, which are catches that go for more than 10 or 20 yards. And also, he's consistent. Listen, there are very few, I think there's only 2 other wide receivers in the league who have had at least 85 grabs, 1,000 yards receiving, and 8 touchdowns the last 5 seasons in a row. So it's like Davante Adams, death and taxes getting to this level, right? So we know Davante Adams is still elite. The question just is, would most teams actually wait for Davante Adams? Here's the other thing that kind of further complicates things. We also know Davante Adams would love to play with Aaron Rodgers, right? So here's the deal. Would Davante Adams also not really, say that he would extend the deal? Any team that trades for Davante Adams would also want to kind of re-sign him, sign him to an extension. And would Davante Adams be willing to do that unless it was a team that maybe Aaron Rodgers wanted to go to, right? So that's yet another ripple effect of this. You have to be a team that's willing to trade a fourth or fifth, maybe a third round draft pick, and you have to have a team that's going to be appealing to Davante Adams to want to re-sign and extend with, and maybe Davante Adams doesn't even know what teams that would be until or unless Aaron Rodgers makes a decision on a team he might want to play for. For Aaron Rodgers, we've heard teams like the New York Giants, we've heard teams like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and others that may want his services. Would those teams that think they could have Aaron Rodgers then go ahead and want to make a deal, spend the draft capital to go ahead and acquire Davante Adams, meanwhile knowing they may be able to do that just letting the Jets cut him to save the money, have Davante Adams be out there as a free agent, and then if they're one of the teams in the Aaron Rodgers market and they do secure Aaron Rodgers, then they know they've got an advantage to potentially sign Davante Adams as well. So the question is not like, would there be a market for Davante Adams in a vacuum? Of course he would. His skills are still elite, right? The question is all these other things. Would Davante Adams want to sign there, extend, re-sign? Would he want to be with Aaron Rodgers? And would Aaron Rodgers also want to be with that team? So those are some of the kind of complications for the Jets to actually get anything back, and they don't really have the leverage. The clock is ticking. They would have to kind of make this decision, find a willing trade partner in the next week and a half, and that might happen before the league year. Right? They might not find somebody willing to do all that before the Jets have the pressure to need to cut him to go ahead and save $30 million of cap space. But then the question becomes, what would they do with that extra $30 million in cap space? I believe one of the biggest things they could do is extend Garrett Wilson right now. He is the stud wide receiver who is going to be their alpha, who is going to be their number one. And the thing is, it might take $30 million a year. You see the wide receiver market out there right now. Jamar Chase is talking about getting $40 million. We've seen guys like A.J. Brown. We've seen guys like Justin Jefferson get money at that level. We've even seen guys maybe slightly less than that, like a T. Higgins, talking about that it might take $30 million. And here's the thing. I actually think it behooves the Jets and the new regime with head coach Aaron Glenn and GM Darren Mogi to go ahead and make this move now. Why? Because the market just keeps on going up. Every year you wait is another kind of escalation on the value of the top flight wide receiver. And straight up, Garrett Wilson is a top flight wide receiver. He had 101 catches. He had 1,100 yards. He had 7 touchdowns last year and is widely respected as one of the best skill sets at the wide receiver position in the National Football League. He had 153 targets last year. That was 4th in the NFL, tied with Justin Jefferson and Brock Bowers, and that was even with Davante Adams himself commanding 140 plus targets, right? And when Davante Adams was there in the second half of the season, Wilson didn't get as many looks. He didn't get as many targets. He didn't get as many touchdowns. He wasn't kind of finishing in the top wide receiver one in fantasy week in and week out. We know Garrett Wilson can be that dude. And here's the thing. We've also heard the new GM say that, yes, getting their young core and extending them are kind of what the Jets want to do. They've referenced getting Garrett Wilson. They've referenced extending Sauce Gardner as well. So I do think it would be a good move to go ahead and use whatever money they get saving by literally releasing Davante Adams and using that to lock up Garrett Wilson to a long-term deal. I think it makes sense to show the organization, to show their young core that they are invested in them. I think it makes sense financially as well, because the price for a big-time wide receiver just keeps on going up. So we're going to have to watch in the next couple of weeks what the Jets do at the wide receiver position. They're going to try and find the market for Davante Adams. The only problem is they don't have a ton of leverage right there. They may wind up just having to cut him for the financial implications. And then with that savings, would they go ahead and re-sign and lock up, extend Garrett Wilson for the long term? It is not common, quite frankly. Garrett Wilson would only be entering the 3rd year, right? A lot of times you see it with 1 year left on the rookie deal. That's when teams start to engage. This would be a situation with 2 years left on the rookie deal, although it is starting to become more and more in vogue. Why? Because the league realizes that wide receiver is a huge priority position, and the price tag for truly elite wide receivers are just going to grow. And quite frankly, if they sign Garrett Wilson, extend him, give him his bag now, and it is something like $30 million a year, I actually believe that 1, 2, 3 years from now, that's going to look like a relatively good market kind of deal, because we know what Garrett Wilson can do. He is going to be one of the best wide receivers in the NFL, and might as well lock him up right now to be a core for this new regime as we continue to build the Jets, Jets. That'll do it from here. It's another episode of Jets Latest, focused on the moves, the contracts, the market for the wide receiver position. Keep it locked. all week long. We'll be getting you ready. Remember, the combine is going on. Like I said, the new league year starts in about a week and a half, so there's going to be a lot of maneuvering, and of course, the NFL draft is on the horizon. Make sure you like this video, make sure you subscribe to this video, and make sure you tell all your Jet fans friends, because we're giving you the latest on the Jets. Until next time, we out of here. Peace.